Adventurers League finds its way to Eberron, and so do we with this 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons character build. Hey folks, Nerdarchist Dave from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Hey Ted, do you know what happened September 21st?
No, what's going on there?
Well, that's when Adventurers League Season 8 finally opens an Eberron campaign setting.
That means we're going to get access to Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, as well as the Player's Handbook.
Yeah, they're breaking the norm for Adventures League and mixing it up a little bit. You're going to get access to those particular items, as well as some races. You're going to get to use goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears. Oh my!
We're going to get all the goblinoids.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, at first they weren't listed. I believe it was just PHB, Wayfarer's Guide, Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And then the outcry, I imagine, went out amongst the internet.
Give us more!
Give us more! No, I mean, with Eberron, right, you have Droam. It's a nation of monsters. You have Dargoon, which is the nation of goblinoids. And then in Sharn, which is going to be a very popular adventuring site, you have Melian's Gate. It is like the ghetto of Sharn for monsters. It was a monster ghetto. So it's really cool, and it's kind of integral to that world because there's so many other races that are integrated. But we're also going to get access to Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron, which contains shifters, changelings, dragon marks,
Warforged,
which, speaking of, we're going to do a character build here today. And by the end of this video, you're going to be able to build out a character from 1st level to 20th level. Maybe at the end, we'll even talk about ways to use it as a villain or an NPC in your game. Down in the description, you can find a couple things. One, you're going to be able to find a link to D&D Beyond, to the character sheet that we built over there. We want to thank D&D Beyond for sponsoring this video and making it possible. You're going to find another thing. You're going to find a pay what you want link to the DM's Guild. The guide is that book I use when I run the game. Where you're going to be able to download a character guide or a character build guide for the character we make, and that's pay what you want. So nothing or $1 million, choice is yours.
This way you're going to be able to see from 1st level to 20th level how you would use this kind of character and how you would worry about your level progression. What feats to take, what stat bumps to worry about, if you got spells, what spell selection you should be looking at, and just the general thought processes of what you should be doing and how you might want to be playing this character.
Right. Not only do we tell you what to take, we tell you when to take it. If you're a DM, we have something special in there for you as well. We also build out the NPC monster stat block for the characters that we build. Now, all of our builds up to this point have been multi-classes. They're all Adventures League legal, but this time we're going to do a little bit different. We're still going to be Adventures League legal, but we're going to do a single class.
So with that, we're looking at focusing down on one particular class, and we're looking to focus that specific to that subclass.
Yeah, so we want to build something special for Eberron, so it only makes sense that we're going to start with one of the races from Eberron, and we said we've got the options of shifters, you have changelings, Kalistar, as well as the Warforged.
And with that, we're going to go with that Warforged, and we're going to make a druid.
So now we have a couple choices. You have a skirmisher, you have the envoy, and you also have the Juggernaut, or all the subclasses.
Now we did off-camera talk about this particular thing, and there are a number of different ways to take druid and play with each of those different sub-races. You could play the gentle giant and have this massive Juggernaut that's sitting there in the trees and having all the different squirrels and butterflies, nesting and roosting on him and or her, and totally loving this particular style. You could have an envoy and just doing that. Hey, I've got an herbalism kit that's totally built into my chest, and I'm sitting here playing around with these different poultices and serums and what have you. But we decided we're actually going to go with the skirmisher, and we got some great ideas linked to that.
So there were some mechanical reasons why we went with the skirmisher. One is we decided we're going to lean heavily on wild shape for this character build.
That's going to then tell us where we're going as far as, not only sub-race, but sub-class.
Yes. No, so one of the things is, obviously, a Warforged is not the optimal race to pick if you're playing a druid, but that's okay, because we love, Dinobots and things of that nature, so we're doing it anyway.
Well, we also love unorthodox character builds. I mean, let's face it, sometimes it is far more fun, it's far more interesting to play a fun character rather than always going for optimal specs when it comes to stats and classes.
I guess we should tell them why we picked Skirmisher. The reason for Skirmisher, it does have a couple abilities that are going to cross over into Wild Shape. They get extra movement, an extra 5 foot, so they're a little bit faster. So all of our animals are going to be a little bit faster, which is cool. It's going to be beneficial. And then the other thing is they have the ability to move at full speed for your daily travel while stealthed. So they were scouts anyway, so they're just really good at being sneaky. So from there, we're going to have to pick our background.
Well, before we dive into that, those all of those abilities, most assuredly cross over while you're wild shape. So that's integral to why we went in that direction as opposed to one of the other two subraces.
Yeah, that absolutely is true. Now we can go to background?
Now we can go to background.
All right, so I was vying for Soldier.
Well,
I seem to vie for that a lot, I think.
Well, Soldier is, one of your, go-tos for background. It's very interesting, and it absolutely makes sense when it comes to Warforged. And the rest of us who were sitting here, talking the other day, looked at it and was like, well, if we're going to make an Eberron, character, let's double down on the Eberron, and let's go with House Agent.
So we decided to double down, like you said, on the Eberron build, and we went with the House Agent. We went with House Deneath, that is the mercantile house, the mercenaries. So, they would have commissioned House Cannith to make this Warforged for them, and they were going to use it for scouting or skirmishing or stealth missions. And we decided something happens in the backstory anyway, which take it or leave it, you can use it or not. But the backstory is this character, this Warforged, he gets out into nature and begins doing his scouting thing and decides that he actually prefers this over being a house agent. Or you could go with something happens and he gets separated, he gets injured and is malfunctioning maybe.
So this is the idea that I went with, was that he's totally loyal to the house, but on mission, either related to or, completely unrelated to the mission, he gets injured and winds up having, amnesia or, some kind of system failure and totally forgets, all right, I've got this signet ring that comes with my background equipment, but I don't remember what it means. I don't remember what I'm supposed to be doing. We wound up, and there's a little bit of, hint, we dumped decks. So, you could call this guy Glitch or Twitch or what have you. And because we're talking about wild shaping and focusing there, the physical stats weren't as necessarily important. So this glitch happens, totally forgets what he's supposed to be doing background-wise. And yeah, you might lose your RP benefit for your background, but he's stuck out there in nature, so he starts, communing, and he starts trying to figure out what stuff is, and winds up learning the ways of Druidism. And we wind up having this fun, interesting Warforged that's attuning to nature. So, a lot of fun.
For whatever reason, he takes up Druidism. Maybe he gets found by a Druid. He learns the ways, and we're going to go from 1st level to 20th level, Druid all the way. So, let's take a look at some of the things that we get for our background. For our house agent, we end up with investigation, persuasion, and a gaming set.
For that, we went with chess. This character winds up becoming quite the thinker, and chess is absolutely one of those things. So whether the druid who he learned from, or maybe he stumbled upon this and he's figured out the game, or he's just happens to be adept at this game without ever having played.
Then they're also going to get vehicle land. The druid skills that we went with were nature and survival. They just make the most sense for a druid.
I can't make a druid who doesn't take those skills. It absolutely makes the most sense.
I actually just made a druid who does not have nature at all.
Well, depending upon how you want to go, but for this particular character, if you want to be, really focused on animals and that kind of stuff, I think nature is necessary. And since this character, we did focus a little bit during the creation on mental heavy, I thought having an intelligent nature skill was a good idea.
Then also we made this character true neutral because he's just one with nature and believes in balance and things like that. And after observing how the natural world likes, maybe he's begun to model his own personal beliefs after that as well. So stat placements, we can take a look at that, where we start with.
So as a skirmisher, you're going to get a +2 to Dex and a +1 to Constitution. And looking at the different ways we were planning to build this character and the things that were important, we put our 10 in Strength. We put our 8 in Dex, knowing that we're going to get that +2, so that cancels out our negative there. I sometimes love these unorthodox builds where your biggest bonus actually takes away your negative, so you don't get that anymore. We put our 14 in Constitution, our 15 in Wisdom. We put our 13 Intelligence and our 12 in Charisma. This winds up giving us a fairly, mental bonuses, as well as giving us a nice, healthy con bonus that we can work towards, so that we can have a decent amount of hit points and never have to worry about, my character when I came out of wild shape didn't have enough hit points before I could shift again.
Now, one of the things we did at 4th level is we decided to instead of taking a stat bumps, we went with a feat, and we went with Resilient, Constitution. So now we're going to have that we're going to have our proficiency modifier to the con for our saves, and we're also going to, that'll take that 15 and round it out to a 16 to increase those hit points.
So that's going to give us, when we start looking at our concentration spells, that's going to give us the proficiency when we have to make those saves, which is incredibly important as a very nature-based character. We saw this as like, I've got the ability to summon nature's ally or conjure animals, conjure fae. Those are great things, and be able to, all right, I can keep that concentration spell going when I take the damage. On top of that, you're going to have Intelligence, Wisdom, and Constitution, so you'll have half the saves of the game, 2 of the better ones.
So then we looked at 8th level, and we decided to go with another feat again. Went with Mobile, because between already being faster because you're a skirmisher, and mobile, now you can zip all over the battlefield. You get that 15 foot of movement added to your animal form, and now also when you dash, difficult terrain does not give you, doesn't cost twice as much movement, and also mobile helps you to not take attacks of opportunity. So you're going to be able to jump in and out of combat with ease.
So that's going to really give you a lot of battlefield control when you start, dancing around the battlefield as an animal.
So doubling down at 12th level, we're going to take the Charger feat. This is going to help us zip around the battlefield even more. You're going to do extra damage when you take that dash and charge people with an attack, or you can just choose to shove them and push them around, so you're going to get some control. But either way, because of mobile, you're going to be able to get all around the field and of combat and not necessarily be in danger yourself.
16th level, we're gonna go with Observant. Not only is this going to help boost our passive perception, which is always nice when you're playing a wisdom-based character, but it's also going to give us that +1 to wisdom, rounding ourselves out to that 16 wisdom itself.
All right, so that leaves us with 1 feat left at 19th level, and we're just going to double down on wisdom and max that out at 18. And so that's basically 1 through 20 for the feats and stat bumps. Of course, obviously you can just look at the character sheet and see what we did, or the character build guide to see step by step how we go through everything. Now also there's some feats that we'd like to mention as honorable mentions.
So we looked at Athlete. This is a very physical character when they're in animal form, so having those bonuses are really nice. Alert is going to give us that bonus to initiative. Always a great thing, regardless of what type of character that you build. And let's face it, Lucky is one of the best feats in the game, so it is always something to consider. They're all honorable mentions for this particular character. We didn't choose to go with any of them because they weren't as superb as the choices that we feel that we made. But they're worth noting, so in case you want to swap those out for any of the aforementioned feats/stat bumps.
Athlete could be quite humorous. Just imagine when your foe thinks he's escaping the wolf or bear up a tree, and then you climb it because you have Athlete. Now, obviously, you can go, like I said, you can go and follow along and see how we actually build it. Thematically, there's tons of different ways you can go with it. Whether this particular Warforged was a deserter, whether they glitched and are broken, these could all be great stories. Now, the question is, how might we use this character as an NPC, maybe even a villain or antagonist?
All right, well, first off, let's use that whole idea of that it's glitched. Well, perhaps that character's got information. He's done his job, as a hired mercenary for House Beneath. Well, what if House Beneath is like, look, we're waiting for that guy to return. We haven't seen him. So House Beneath hires your player characters to go track this guy down. And he's not really an antagonist. The mission is fighting whatever is there in between and finding this guy. And you have to bring him in. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, even better, he doesn't want to go, right? Like, I like my life. I like what I'm doing here. I don't know who you're talking about. I don't want to go back, regardless. And maybe they have to bring this Warforged back intact, or as intact as they possibly can. And he's not a bad guy either. So that could be a moral quandary.
So things to look out for is like, okay, maybe he's got, some kind of scroll or missive that he isn't even aware that he's got on him, or maybe they just have to persuade for him to give that up. They might have to identify that this is in fact the correct one because he is wearing that signet ring without the knowledge of knowing what that is. So that would help in a possible persuasion role of like, look, you're wearing the ring, you're the guy we're looking for, this is the item that we need to have, can we talk this out, can we get that from you? So there can be a lot of fun there.
Then there's the idea of he's a deserter. He's left his post. They have to bring him in. And again, like, all of these are great, and they're great for Eberron stories, really, where you have these moral quandaries of what to do. Like, he could be like, no, I don't want to go back. Like, I never chose that life. They made me, and then they said I was sold and had to do this. I'm free. I want to be free. And I'm sure, like, the houses came up with ways around the cords of Thronehold and things like that to try and keep, their people with them. So you then have to either convince this guy, or maybe you have sympathy towards this Warforged, and you decide you want to help him, and maybe you have to figure out how can you get him away from House Beneath in a way that they're not going to still be pursuing him, and all parties are kind of happy.
Perhaps it was whatever the rival house that he was a spy against. Perhaps like he's sided with them.
Instead of a deserter, he's actually a defector, and he's switched sides, so now he is absolutely an enemy, or you could even go in a different route and be like, he's actually, whatever's changed him or whatever this character has decided, he's embracing the wild side of things, and maybe he sees other humanoids as being a detriment to the wilderness and the wilds, and now he's gone like all hardcore Greenpeace, but in a really, really bad way, and he's like an eco-terrorist, and looking to take down civilization.
He spends so much time as an animal, and it's like, look, perhaps this guy is out there, and it's like, nope, I don't go to civilization unless I'm there to bring it down, unless I'm there to stop all of this. Let's face it, we've got these wars, we've got all of these things, and if we didn't have civilizations and castles and all this nonsense, then wars wouldn't be happening. It's kill or be killed in nature, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to you.
Now, the final way I would say you could use this NPC is as a friendly NPC that they encounter while in the wilderness. Whether he needs the party's help and they help him, or he helps the party, or whether they just share a campfire together, or maybe this individual points out a safe route through the wilderness for a couple reasons. One, to help the party, and two, like, hey, there's some bears over there, and they're kind of minding their own business. They have cubs though, and they're gonna freak out if you go over there. And you're armed men and women, and I usually know how this is going to go. And I want to protect you, and I want to protect the wildlife at the same time. So that's the best way. So it could just be an interesting social encounter.
I love wandering NPCs that are there just for a sole RP aspect, and perhaps, like you were talking about, like, oh, there's this scene of bears, and the players, the characters see these bears, and they're scared. It's a low-level game. They think that they've got to fight the bears, and this Warforged literally shows up. It was a bird, it was a squirrel, and it shifts right in the middle of them, and it points out look, there's a bear cub behind them. Had you killed those bears, you would be depriving, this cub of parents, and get into the more of that moral quandary, and literally stop an encounter from happening, of a combat encounter from happening, and turn it solely into an RP.
Question is, how would you use this in your game? Whether we're talking about using it from the player side, if you're interested, maybe you have your own Warforged or Druid build you want to share with us, or maybe you want to tell us how you would use it as an NPC. We got a place where we can discuss that. That is down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
After you do that, don't forget to check the description where you can check out the link to D&D Beyond, or the build guide over on the DM's Guild.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.